back next time to see if they have anything they can offer us, or if Matrix is giving us the, good deal. And, I'll work with Sandy through that too, and get her feedback and opinion. Okay, it's 9 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and get started with the next item on the agenda, the Justice Project. So we, at the last meeting that we had as a board, and at a meeting subsequent to our last meeting, I made a report to the DuBois County Council. The question that was asked is, at this point, would the commissioners like to continue the design and architectural drawings, the construction documents for a courts facility, what we've called the judicial center in the past. So do we want to put that back on the board to have that drawing complete and finished? By having it complete and finished, that would give us the opportunity to put it out as a project to be bid, or to be bid as an alternate to our primary project dealing with the community corrections building and the security center, the jail. So our plan at the last meeting was to put it out there for a couple weeks, take feedback from the public if they had any, take phone calls, talk to people, and make a determination if we want to move forward with construction documents. I've been told by RQAW, our architect, that they are able and willing to continue doing those construction documents, that they will move briskly to meet with office holders, the judges, the prosecuting attorney, the clerk, everyone that will be impacted by a potential judicial center, to get more collaboration to make sure that if we do, that whatever building they are designing is a building that will work for us currently and for the next 20 or 30 years. So they are available to do it. We can move forward with doing the design and put it out for bid and determine at the time the bids come back that it's more than we are happy to spend, or we can say that bids came back in such a way that the project is worthwhile to proceed with. So one of our, so that's our option. We can either continue. Today, we're not making a decision necessarily to build it. We're making a determination if we should finish the construction documents for that building. At this point, they've done about 50% of the drawing on it. There are multiple phases of a complex building project like this. There's you do a feasibility study, and then you do schematic design, and you do design development, and then you do construction documents. At this point, they made it about halfway through before earlier in this year when we pulled that portion of the project off the table. So they would be starting at almost a halfway point if they were to continue with doing that.
I didn't hear that last part. They'll do well. The last part. The very last
If you please don't make public comments until it's time for public comments, and we'll open it up for that. So what they're doing now, they can. I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. They are willing and able to do it if we want them to do that work. The reason, I guess, what we can do to start with is we can talk to the other commissioners, myself, and see what kind of feedback you have, what kind of feelings you have about moving forward with this part of the project, and where we want to go with it. So I'll start with my comments, and then we'll pass it along and see what everybody has to say. But one of the questions that has come to me is, why would we want to do this project now? Why is now a good time to do this? Starting back in 2017 is whenever I became commissioner, and I've been working on it for 4 years since then. The position of the board has always been that it's a good idea to put a judicial campus together, to put the light criminal offices together on one campus. There's numerous reasons for that, and a few of those are, if there's a need, the price is never going to be cheaper than it is today. If we're going to move, if it's something we need, prices don't only go up every year. Our construction manager tells us that we can expect 3% increases every year at a minimum. And these are specialized products and they don't ever go down. I guess some of my notes that I have here are for why the project is a good idea overall. Someone that's on the phone, if you can mute your phone, please. Oh, what is this?
Elmer's watching you and he's back to you.
Okay. So yeah, just if you keep it on mute, please, until you're going to speak. So, trying to think here. I've got the notes that I have are for why the project is a good idea overall, and here's a few of the reasons. For one, just over the last 12 months, like we've had complaints from the prosecutor's office not having enough space for their staff. Probation office has been expanded, but they are still limited on space. The people that are at the courthouse, such as the auditor's office, treasurer's office, clerk, whenever you go into there, you can see that the office desks are stacked right on top of one another. So by moving out a few of the offices, it will give us the opportunity to expand and make proper, current, modern working spaces for the employees that are left behind. And there's just a lot of, I just think that there's a lot of ways that this would be beneficial, not only for the criminal justice system, but for the other offices that are going to be left behind. So I guess before we go any further, I guess my point or my thought on it is, and we'll get the feedback from the other commissioners, is we thought this was a good idea in January. We went to the council and asked for their support. At that time, I believe we had the support to move forward with the project. It was supposed to be approved in March. COVID hit around that same time, and we put it off, and we tabled it, and we moved it forward a few months, and we had a financial advisor give us some feedback at that time. We said, what if the scenario is very bad and income is very poor, what would it do? And the numbers were still favorable that we could do the majority of the project. Since that time, they've been updated. And if we wanted to, if our projections and estimates are correct, we could afford to do the project. So I guess my thought is, we believed it was a good idea. We have data that shows that all the benefits of the things that it can do. At this point, I'm in favor of continuing to move forward with at least getting the construction documents finished and seeing if it's how the bids come back and see if it's a project worth moving forward with. So I'll move on to Commissioner House.
I would agree. I would like to see the construction documents completed. The only thing that's changed is COVID. If the financials still work out, I don't see any reason to not go ahead with at least the construction documents here. This all started back when I was still on the council. So, I mean, we've been working on this with the jail project for over 4 years. I've been a commissioner now for 4 years. And I always look at us bringing these inmates down here in their orange jumpsuits in the van, and I think the public safety thing, they intermingle in our courthouse, to make the changes to our courthouse where we're not intermingling. The people coming from the prison forecourt with the public would cost us probably more than this project would, or a very considerable amount, to say the least. We've had a lack of space from the very beginning. We've had our prosecutor come to us multiple times asking for more space. We just don't have it to give. And a lot of thought and study went into these plans to get us to this point. Every office in the county was interviewed, and we put a lot of thought into these plans. So I just feel like at this point, it would be silly for us to throw it all out just because of COVID, because that was really the main driver, and even considering at this point to scale back these plans. So I am on board with continuing the construction documents.
Commissioner Broadness, please.
Yes, I was in favor of this from the beginning. I felt like it was the third leg of the project and solves many problems, that, are concerns that we have in the county, mainly with space. I know Commissioner Blessinger referred to, the offices and so forth that would be left behind and providing more space for them. And I would add to that as time goes on, I think there's going to be a demand for even more space. We talked about a full-time county attorney at one time. It's been talked about in the past, and we know that at some point it's going to come up again with county zoning and planning, and all of that is going to take more space to manage those things. So, I think space is critical today. I think it will become even more critical in the future. So it's an important part of the project. It was an important part of the project. I was disappointed when it was pulled, or when we pulled it. Understandably, we had reasons to do that, but I was disappointed at that point because I was thinking, we'll now go ahead with the rest of it, and this will be now another 10 years before we had the opportunity to correct these other problems. So as I've listened, as for feedback over the last 2 weeks, there seem to be two main concerns with it. Number one, do we have enough money besides what we need for building the project? Do we have enough money to staff the facility and also offer programming within the facility that is sorely needed? The second concern was that we only are building 2 courts. I think originally we had talked about 4. 3 is what we will probably need in the future. But my concern with adding another court to it would be the cost of the project. I think we have an upper limit of what we can or what we want to afford, leaving a reserve for, as I mentioned before, the operational costs that are going to be associated with the project. So, if we could add another court to the project and still keep it under our desired limit, I would like to look at that, but I don't really think that's a possibility. I would like to hear any feedback from anyone else yet this morning that might be interested in sharing their thoughts before I make a decision, but that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so at this time, generally at our commissioner meetings, we have time set up at the end of the meeting for public comment, so that if anybody wants to come and talk about anything they want for 5 minutes, we let them come do whatever they want. This is a project of more public interest, so we will definitely entertain anybody that would like to come up and speak. Please limit your time to 5 minutes. If you need additional time, we would be, we can discuss that, but if someone would like to come up, I'm going to first read a statement from the mayor. He couldn't, I don't believe, Mayor, you're not online, are you? So Mayor,
Yes, I'm fine.
okay, would you like to?
Can you hear me, sir?
Yes, I can. So that's Mayor Bonder. Would you like me to read your letter, or do you have a comment that you would like to make?
Well,
you go ahead and read the letter. I'm afraid that people wouldn't hear it if you came through the phone. If they can, I'll be glad to read it as well.
Okay, I'll just read it quickly and then we'll open it up to everyone else. So it says, "Dear county commissioners, I appreciate your openness to the various perspectives shared with you regarding plans to relocate the judicial center from the current DuBois County Courthouse to a location adjacent to the security center. Your plans improve the safety of the public and the efficiencies of the Sheriff's Department Security Center. Those efficiencies are supported with facts and have been shared with the public. The challenge that continues to surface is how to make the move effective for all stakeholders. My observation is that there is fear to embrace the proposed change due to the unknown consequences of the move of the courts to the new complex. Yes, there will be a percentage of the current staff relocated 5 blocks south and 4 blocks east of their current offices. That's not a great distance. There are many that will remain. I also recognize the commissioners have considered which functions the county may relocate to the courthouse to utilize the space available and backfilling with roles that could stimulate downtown business. Thinking and planning collaboratively for the long-term benefit of DuBois County and the city of Jasper is necessary. Specifically, the downtown merchants, the heart of Jasper, and recently revisited downtown revitalization project will have additional influence on growing the downtown attractions that will focus on a draw for shopping, entertainment, and restaurants in the area. The current situation with regard to public safety is not an environment we wish to sustain in the downtown. I would support the justice system relocation plan given financial concerns are addressed. There is a plan for use of the vacated space in the courthouse. I trust the county commissioners to make a well-informed decision regarding the value of a relocated justice center. Thank you for your service on our communities. Dean Von Draag, Mayor of Jasper." So thank you for your feedback, Mayor Von Draag. Okay. So does anyone, would anyone else like to come up and have 5 minutes to address the board? I know that Mr. Schwarzenegger was going to make a comment, but I don't see him here. Please go ahead. And for the record, who are you?
Yeah, Maureen Braun, Finishing Touches, and I'm speaking for myself as a business owner. And, we appreciate the communication here because it is all about community and working together. And the courthouse has been the center and focal point for our downtown since history. So it's very important that we work together to keep that necessary. But I am in favor of looking at the judicial system to move, mostly because of all the comments over the years of the orange jumpsuits. And there have been times when they've gotten loose and it's a little scary as a business owner and not only that for our community. So in looking at that, we want to make sure that, working together for your needs, our needs, but I think that is a concern of the community. We also, I'm involved in many groups. So walkability and the future, what we want to do as far as more community involvement downtown and events. The walkability is important. And as they see the jumpsuits and they see the activity around there, it really destroys what we're trying to do. But I think for most people, we also want to make sure that anything that moves out, that the county courthouse is filled with county operations, not other, types of things, because it's important to get the county involved. The other concern I have is the vehicles parked around the circle portion of the square, because, downtown revitalization, the roads will be worked on soon, and it's 100 years old underneath there, so who knows what's going to happen when that all evolves. But in doing so, as a business owner, we've been here 42 years. We've seen a lot of changes. We understand the changes you might want to make. But we also want to improve the area once the roads are torn up, and we want to improve the look of our downtown, which means that we want to add, trees and shrubs, and we want to add landscape. And so that would probably move the parking into the road a little bit more. And as a safety concern, when one lane is driving around, if there are any vehicles parked around that circle, it's very dangerous for our customers and for people working in the community. So I would want that to be looked at very carefully you know, whether it stays or doesn't stay, where will those vehicles go? And the third thing, you know, is the cost for everyone. COVID certainly has put a factor in for all of us as business owners. You know, we are struggling as a business, not ours necessarily, all the young ones especially that are 5 years and younger. I mean, they really need to have the transparency with what you're doing here, you know, to make sure that they can survive over the next few years and really what your needs are. But I, you know, trust you all as getting all the information together and working together, just hearing, I appreciate that, so we can be open with what our feelings are, and we trust that you'll make the best decision, you know, for our community. So, thank you.
Thank you. And kind of to piggyback on that,
Thank you, Maureen.
to piggyback on some of those comments, I was a small business owner downtown for about 3.5 years. And Commissioner Hostetter has a couple small businesses close to the downtown. So we are, and that's important. We don't want to do anything, of course, that will hurt the downtown in any way or any part of the county for that matter. With the Heart of Jasper and some of the things that they are doing with that project, the goal, my understanding, is to make a great experience downtown. And we want to be part of that collaboration with the mayor, with the city of Jasper. And anything we do with this project, we definitely don't want to get in the way of that, of making downtown active and vibrant. Another issue that I don't know that too many people, and I don't know if the commissioners, I'm sure, are aware of it, that Commissioner Hoster, you brought it up about the inmates that if they bring in 4 inmates, and sometimes they get brought up the public elevator because it fits the amount of people that we can do, and then they have to walk through a public hall, multiple public areas to get to the holding cells to have their day in court. Number one, again, not seeing the orange jumpsuits downtown, that's not good, but if you're in the office and you're filing for a deduction or you're talking to the assessor about something and you see a whole chain gang of people walking down the hallway, that's not, that's kind of intimidating as well. And we've also, if you remember, we've had family members that knew that their person was coming in for court that day. They were hiding things in the building for those people to pick up. And so far, I think it was cigarettes and other personal use items, but it very well could be a safety issue. So that's another thing that is kind of a good thing about getting these people separated out. I'd be happy to take another comment. Anyone? Yes, sir. Come on up. And who are you for the record? Just so since.
My name is Joe Beaver. I am a resident of a downtown merchant. We're obviously concerned about what's going to be the use of the courthouse if and when the jail, the court system gets moved out of the building. Because we feel that it's very important that the courthouse is a used place for the county. Because we want traffic in downtown Jasper. And for the record, we've had our store, Donna's had the store for 11 years, and she's never once mentioned people in orange, except maybe if we knew somebody, but only for that reason, not because of concern from customers. So we feel it's very important that we maintain the courthouse. And I think I heard what the plans are for the courthouse in the future, but I want to make sure that that's reiterated and brought forward so that people don't have the fear that it's going to be a vacant type building, not used.
Mr. Wheeler, I believe I'll address that one, or we can, and then we can move on to the next question. So all the offices that are on the first floor, with the exception of the clerk's office, we maintain steady. I guess it's only a couple offices really. The recorder's office will still stay on the first floor. The auditor's office will stay on the first floor. The records librarian in the basement would stay, and we have a custodian. The assessor's office would stay on the third floor. The assessor also has a private vendor that they work with that has office space on the second floor, I believe, where they're located. So those offices would stay. One outside firm that is related with the county that they came asking for extra space earlier this year was Purdue Extension. They are located on Executive Boulevard now. They said that they didn't have enough room for the activities that they're doing. So that's one that, I would like to see come this way if we can make it work for them. And also some of the space, because the offices have grown over time. We would like to expand some of the current offices, the space they have, they would expand to fill those spaces, not more bodies, but, more space for those people. And so I agree, and that's one of the main pieces of feedback that I got from both the mayor and from other people in the community is, how are you going to backfill this place? Who's going to be downtown? And I think over the time that we are designing the final portion of the facility itself to see, get it ready for bid, I think that is something that we owe the public to have a little more firm, concrete thing to say, here are some possibilities of what that would look like. Because we don't want to have a vacant courthouse. Absolutely. You have a comment? Anybody else have a comment?
I assure you, we are not closing or abandoning the courthouse.
So I guess the only other question I have, before we do all this, will this come to a vote for, do we as county residents vote on paying the taxes to build that new security center? Do you have to do that, or is that already been okay?
There's no referendum for this project, and any taxes that would be used to pay for the project are already in place.
Okay.
There wouldn't be any new taxes if we build the judicial center, or if we don't. We are going to make do with the income, the revenue that we have already.
Okay.
The income tax that was increased was for this project.
Yes, previously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chairman, a couple of things.
Yes.
First of all, I wasn't able to catch the name of the person who was speaking. And secondly, when you were mentioning offices that will stay in the courthouse, did you mention the treasurer's office? I think that's important because that generates a lot of traffic.
Yes.
Especially a couple of times a year in the spring and the fall for weeks on end. So I think that's important. But I would like to know who was speaking.
That was Mr. Beeler, Joe Beeler.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And I see someone that just walked in that had previously contacted me. They wanted to read something or make a comment. So if you want to come up and introduce yourself, you're welcome to have the floor.
Thank you, Commissioner.
You're welcome.
Okay,
And for the record, we have Commissioner Bramas is on the phone. No, that's the attorney, but on the phone is one of the other commissioners. So if you want to introduce yourself and then you can make your comment.
thank you.
You're welcome.
My name is Grant Schwartzentruber. I'm an attorney in Davies County, Indiana. And I'm reading this statement, I guess, on behalf of Judge Weichert, who asked me to, it's pretty short, so if you'll bear with me. It is written from a first person perspective. So where he says I'm not referring to myself. Sorry, I cannot be here this morning, but Kitty and I are under a self-imposed quarantine. To clarify what I told you at your August 3rd meeting, I told you that my information was from the merchants around the square and not anywhere else. These are the merchants who are directly affected by courthouse traffic. I did not contact the Downtown Merchants Committee. There are 13 merchants around the square. I couldn't find 2 of them, and a third did not get back to me. But I told you that all of the other 10 merchants on the square wanted and needed the courts to stay in the courthouse. Many of those same merchants are probably at this meeting today. It is still my opinion that we need to keep the courts in the courthouse. If we don't, in the future, there will be more empty buildings on the square than we have now. This $11 million project is unnecessary. As to the jail, I've never been against the jail if we need one. The facts are that the average jail population since April are 72 in April, 68 in May, 68 in June, 68 in July, and 66 in August. I cannot find the population for September, October, and November, but I started checking the daily population last Wednesday, and the numbers are as follows. 67 prisoners on Wednesday, December 16th, 66 on Thursday, 64 on Friday, 62 on Saturday, and 63 on Sunday. We have 84 beds now, and if we follow the Department of Corrections suggestion that we keep our population at 80%, which is would be 67.2, that would mean from May to September, and even now, we are not over capacity, nor were we over capacity then. It also means that we have an average of 16 or 18 empty beds each night. Why would we build a new jail when our jail is not over capacity? Why would we want to build a jail with 195 beds, 111 more than we have now? That would mean we would have 127 empty beds. Why? It is important that our citizens know that this $30 million jail project will be paid out of the income tax passed by the county council in 2019. That means our citizens will have $30 million less money available to them during the next 20 years. Why? Our federal government is getting close to passing the second stimulus bill. I think this was written before they came to some agreement. Okay. Second stimulus bill, which will put money into most households during this pandemic. You're taking money away from every Du Bois County household during this pandemic, and it makes no sense. Why? As I suggested in August, now is the time to put a moratorium on collecting this income tax. While we are still under capacity, we should delay this jail project until we need one and when our county taxpayers can afford to be contributing out of their income. We do not need a jail now. That's his statement. I haven't verified that information. I'm merely reading what I understood. We did, my partners and I invested on the square as well. And in a general sense, I would like to see this, the courthouse square to be very strong. Jasper is one of the few places that has thrived in its downtown in Southwest Indiana. And when we were looking to invest on a courthouse square and in a community, this was one of the first places we looked. There's a reason that people want to locate on the square. And I do think I would be slow to increasing public sector spending during these types of times. And for my own personal selfish desires, it's my preference that we have people on the square. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. One comment that I will mention, and I put a lot of thought into this weekend, and it goes to Mr. Weikert's, Judge Weikert's comments. It's kind of like when you, I don't want to make this a lot of different subject, but it's like looking at climate change. People say, you'll just say, well, it's there's a difference between climate and weather. I think what Judge Weikert is looking at is the weather. This year, we've been at capacity most of the time, from what he's saying, of our rated capacity. You're supposed to have 80%, so that the sheriff's department has the ability to classify inmates to keep this sort of inmate away from that sort of inmate. So we're looking, if we look at just this year, we're looking at the weather. You know, if the weather changes, there's different things that affect that, but the climate is the big picture. What has our jail and justice system done over the last decade? And the numbers that we've looked at through the feasibility study, through the University of Cincinnati study, through the National Institute of Corrections study, and our local study, that we've been at 84 is usually, you know, if I was to guess, is where we were prior to COVID. And then in last October, we had 119, I think was one or 121, somewhere in that number. And historically, over the last decade before that, we've been over our rated capacity every year And that's what got this whole conversation started. We've been over capacity the whole time. Yes, with COVID, some of the courts, jury trials have been delayed until March, I believe. So the jury trials aren't happening. There's the way policing is happening now is changing. I think there's just been some changes in the criminal justice system that we can maybe can see why they would be happening over the last, all the numbers that the judges presented. With it, it would be nice to be able to go like to snap our fingers and have a jail building the day we need it. The unfortunate thing, when you deal with a project that's this big, that has this many moving parts, you have to plan. You have to, you can't just turn it on and off when you want it to build. So if we, I mean, yes, we don't need that jail pod today. But is it likely that we will need it in 2 years? I say yes, that's very likely. If any of the historical trends have changed, we will need it. First for the space, that's where this started, but for all of the other reasons that we've illustrated over time, that it will increase safety of our employees and of the inmates, the efficiency between our offices. It will give our own employees ample working space. There's 100 reasons of why, well beyond just the bed count. So, Commissioner Alstetter, any other comments?
I would agree.
And I'm not trying to keep you on the spot, Mr. Forrester, if you're welcome to have a seat if you want, or you can
No
say.
problem. I like to be on the hot seat. No
Didn't want you thinking we were grilling you.
No worries.
I would agree. We're not getting for today. We've got an outdated plan. It needs to be updated. It takes more labor to run a linear jail than it does the new pod systems, which can save the county money over time. And we're looking at space for programs. We cannot do a simple remodeling of 15 beds to our current jail without doing a major overhaul. It's similar, you know, in the restaurant business. If I do a big remodeling project, I'm required to remodel my restroom to be handicap accessible. The jail is a similar situation. We can't just add a few beds to it to make it work for now. We have to go full bore into it because we're required by law to do that. So I think we're building for the future, and we're looking out several years, not just what's happened the last few months.
Commissioner Bromas?
Yes, I think your climate weather analogy is very good. And one of the issues, or one of the things that I would point out, is that in the initial study by R2AW, a bed count with, you know, they recommended we build something like 270, I believe, or something in that neighborhood. And they were projecting that on if nothing else changes about the way incarcerations and justice in New Orleans County is measured from what has happened in the past 20 years. Things have changed. As Judge Weicker points out, the numbers have gone down. Some of that is due to the pandemic and the enforcement, as Commissioner Webster talked about. Some of that is due to a change in the way we treat trial. So the numbers have gone down. You know, I think about, you know, roughly 20%, something like that, 20 or 25%. But we have also reduced our number of beds that we intend to construct by roughly the same percentage. So that, you know, I kind of look at that as being a reflection of what has gone on in the past year. But and I also agree with the safety and the efficiency and all of those types of things, and the space available for programming that we don't have today. So there's just a lot of good things about this project that are beyond just expanding the number of beds.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. Anything from any of the county employees or county officials?
I guess I would just have one follow-up to some of that. If this is accurate, and I assume it is, Judge Weigert's comments? 72, 68, 68, 68, 66, 66, 64, 62, 63. That's over the course of approximately a year. Let's not turn a wish list, wishes, desires, fancies, wants, into needs. Right now, it's at or under that 80%. I definitely think you've got to look towards the future. You have to. But what all levels of government are going to be experiencing over the next, right now, and over the next 12 months is lower receipts. The state knows that, federal government knows that. I don't know if locally there's been that type of a study run. I would assume it would be the exact same. So, thank you.
And I'll end on the financial aspect. We did have, Baker Tilly is our financial advisor. Matt Eckerly is running that. Projections that we had him do earlier this year, we said, give us an idea of what it would look like if we had 20% less revenue going forward than we had in the past. What would that look like? Because we wanted to find out if things are, this was in March, when we didn't know what COVID was going to do, and we thought, oh, maybe we're going to have really high unemployment. Maybe we're going to have a big, we didn't know. It was a lot of unknowns at that time. So that's what we asked for, and he gave us figures based on our request. Since that time, we know a lot more data. The state has put out more data. We've seen how unemployment has gone up to 9%, and it's it's coming back down. It never got anywhere near the 20% loss in revenue that we could have had. So what we've done to be extra conservative moving forward was we are considering our spending based on a 10% reduction on year one, or year two, I'm sorry. So on year two, we are counting 10% deduction from where we are. And then the next year, a 5% deduction, and then we are flatlined for the next 17 years. That would mean that we are counting on the county not to increase anybody's wages, and for there to be no job growth and no population growth. So we are, historically, that's not ever been the case, but that's how we are projecting this, just in, to be as conservative as possible. Our funds actually for 2021 that we will be bringing in are higher than what we're bringing in 2020, because they're, the figures that we get are for old numbers. The state takes, say, a year to catch up. So next year we know what we're going to get already, and then the years after that we are basing on the 2020 numbers, and we are taking them either down or flatlining them going forward to make sure that we don't spend beyond our means if we decide to move forward with those projects. So that being said, there's a couple things that we need to do, other pieces of business related to the Justice Project that we need to do today. If we went with either the base project, that being the jail, the community corrections, and the jail pod, if we did just that portion, or if we did that portion and the judicial center with the courts in it, either way, we need to have a building. Mr. Schneider, what's the proper name for it? A building corporation. Basically, it's a tool that local governments use to do these kind of building projects. I believe that the library and school have done similar things. And with that, we need to have a lease board that has to have 3 members on it. And it's the job of the commissioners to appoint those people. And I would like to do that this morning. And the 3 people that I believe have agreed to step up and do this for us are Ken Schnauz, Todd Ofer, and Gil Eckerly. I believe have agreed to take those positions. Does that sound accurate to you, Mr. Hofstadter and Mr. Brahmas?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So I would make a motion that we appoint or we select Mr. Schnauz, Ofer, and Eckerly to this building corporation.
I'll type the motion.
Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. the next thing that we have to make a decision on, are we going to move as a board to continue the construction documents for the judicial center? What are your thoughts?
I would like to continue with it.
Commissioner Bromas? Any discussion on that?
Yes, I will continue with the construction documents and, knowing that, then, you know, when they're finished and we get some, better estimates and even bids, we'll know better where we're at.
I will make a motion to make it official that we move forward with the construction documents on the judicial center. First and second, any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion carries. All right. Next up, we have Megan Durloff with Community Corrections. Good morning.
Good morning, how are you?
Fine, thank you.
Good. So
I was going to say, just to remind the board, last time the director came, she was asking for reimbursement for some COVID expenses. We approved some of those expenses at the last meeting. We asked for clarification on some items, some of the other items, and I believe that's what we're here to talk about today.
Okay, so, Megan Durloff, Director of Boone County Community Corrections. We operate a 102-bed work release facility. And during, quarantine, the shutdown, operating the work release facility is a congregate living facility. Myself, the courts, the prosecutor's office, we decided that we needed to take some necessary steps to be able to ensure that our participants were safe in the work release facility. We decided that in order to do that, we needed to reduce our population. And so by about March, after, the initial shutdown, we reduced our population by 48 work release participants. 48 of those participants went on electronic monitoring with GPS. Then again, in May, Community Corrections Work Release Program had about 7 individuals who tested positive for COVID. At that time, we decided that the remaining individuals who had stayed in work release also needed to be put on electronic monitoring with GPS. So 23 individuals at that point went to GPS. Over the course of several months then, those individuals remained on GPS monitoring instead of in our work release. The cost to monitor somebody per day on GPS is $3.95 per person, times the number of days that that individual was on GPS monitoring was the expense that DuBois County Community Corrections incurred directly because of having to release those people via COVID. I see this as a COVID-related expense.
So it costs you $3.95 a day to monitor each person, so 35, 23 went that one time, so 23 times $3.95 per day per hour, whatever that length of time is. And out of that $3.95, how much was charged to the participant?
Our participants pay a user fee on GPS of $12.86 per day.
$12 a day is paid?
Yes. So community corrections operating expenses, our budget increased by about $15,000 that I'm requesting reimbursement for. Just because they were paying that user fee, that it doesn't negate the fact that our operating expenses increased as a result of COVID. You know, if those individuals would have been placed on GPS monitoring instead of work release, you know, during that time, our population was only like 7 in work release. I wouldn't have had the need to staff our work release facility with the amount of officers that I have staffed there. So, that side of things did not decrease at all. The expenditures did.
I think I'm still asking the same question I did last time. So yes, one of your line items in your budget would have went up, but then shouldn't your revenue in a different area have gone up equally or better? Or maybe not better, but let's just say equally. If, let's just pretend that it's an ideal world, every participant pays on time every week and they pay every penny, would you not be made whole?
No, because my expenditures increased. My expenditures were supposed to be this much. My collections remained this much. My expenditures went up $15,000.
You're saying that, and here again, I'm not, please understand, I'm not trying to be argumentative. I'm trying to clearly understand the situation, but I don't feel like I do, or I may be not getting it, so to speak. So that same person that was, if I was a person that lived there and was doing work release, I would pay $100 a week?
Yes.
$100 a week roughly? So you're saying you lost that $100 a week on one part of the ledger? Or you didn't?
No, I'm saying it was, I mean, I don't look at my budget, I guess, in that way. I look at how much it costs to run our agency overall. So, collections across this time, I mean, yeah, obviously did go down.
Sure.
But I'm not talking about revenue loss. In general, even if collections would have stayed the same and been a flat line,
So what cost you more then?
the electronic monitoring cost me $15,000 more than I would have originally had to pay.
You're saying you have that $15,000 extra expense, and the $12 a day that they paid for that didn't cover that.
I'm saying it covers normal operating expenses, such as staffing our facility. During this time, I didn't lay off any of our county employees.
Sure. Commissioner House, what do you think? Or what are your thoughts on it?
I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around it. I apologize, because I look at it in terms of like my business, and I sell 100 bagels and they cost me $1 a piece, cost me $100 to sell 100 bagels. But if I sell 200 bagels, well, I get the revenue from that additional 100 bagels as well. So yeah, it cost me $200, but now instead of $2 a piece, I'm gonna get, I'm gonna double my income as well. So I guess that's where I feel like it costs $3.95, but it takes $12 a day. I'm failing to understand where you're out. And I'm sorry.
You put it in the language we understand.
Yeah.
Talk about food, please.
Okay.
And this is the same
It
thing.
costs, I guess in that same scenario, I guess it's your operating expenses, your employees, none of that went down, but it's costing you more to get the same amount of income. You're not, I don't know, I can't.
Okay, so I think I understand. I think we agree, your cost to run the facility is the same.
So the overhead stayed the same.
You,
No, my overhead increased by $15,000 for my agency as a whole.
okay, so you spent $15,000 more based on you have to pay $395 a day for all these people that are out. So if it was a $100,000 budget, now you have a $115,000 budget, or not a budget, expenses. Right, $115,000 of expense, whatever that is. And you're saying that the additional money that you brought in, the $12 a day, that doesn't get on the revenue side. Why doesn't that get on the revenue side? Or how does that not counterbalance any of that 15,000?
These people would have been paying. It's a user fee no matter what. To run my building. Okay, so say that I expected that I would have had an increase, I would have had the 180,000 or 180 people on work, or on home detention is going into 2020. I would have expected to have 180 people on home detention and only have 7 people in work release, like what we did over those couple months. I wouldn't have staffed 12 corrections officers at the beginning of 2020. So the operations part of my budget, staffing wise, to run that facility stayed the same for the work release side of things. But then, but I would not have staffed it that way. I would have probably laid off 2 employees. $120,000 less in expenditures on that side. It changes things whenever you unexpectedly have 70 more people on home detention as a result of COVID. It increased my expenditures because I didn't lay off any of those officers. We still had to run our facility. My expenditures increased. My revenue stayed the same. I'm not talking about, revenue loss at all. I'm talking about increased expenditures.
Cindy, for this money, for this, that we approved part of it last time, on the 7th, and if we make whatever action we take today, that money has it been appropriated? Is there?
It's in the COVID expenses that the council.
It's kind of hanging out there.
And there's still money available.
Or ones like this that we're in.
We're still having, this was approved in October already.
Right. Commissioner Brahmas, can you give us any feedback, or do you have any feedback or questions?
Just that, I think I get it. I thought the last time that, the presentation that it made sense to me. She did make one statement today that I thought best explained it. It costs her more to achieve the same revenue. And, one of the things that maybe it didn't really concern me the last time, but one of the things that I was thinking about was that is this revenue replacement or is this an expense? I believe it is an expense, an extra expense. And even if it was revenue replacement, I'd be okay with that. The way that the CARES Act money has come into the county recently, to where we were able to use public safety salaries to fund that money. I know our association made the statement that it's close to revenue replacement as we can get. So even though I don't believe it's revenue replacement, even if it was, I'd be okay with that.
Thank you. Anything further, Commissioner Hostetter?
What?
I guess if you got the $12 for the user and it costs $3.95, does that not replace the cost of that $3.95? And I understand, and maybe in the revenue replacement side of it, they would have been paying $100 a week to be in the correction center, but instead they're paying $3.95 a day to be on home monitoring. But they also pay, it costs you $3.95 a day, but they're also paying $12 a day.
So the part that to operate an electronic monitoring program, the expense is not just the bracelet.
Okay.
The expense is also the staff that goes along with monitoring those people. So our field officers, corrections officers who are in the control room monitoring all the screens to make sure that they stay home. You know, parts of everyone's salary is paid out of our project income. And because our salary and because our staffing did not decrease in any way, like those expenses remain the same. And that's where that 1286 also goes towards some of that as well.
One way that I looked at it, this is general. $100 a week is one amount of money. $12 a week, or $12 a day times 7 is $84. That's $15 for each participant of loss. Right. That I see. That's clear. That makes sense to me. I'm fine with making that whole. What does that amount actually end up coming up to? I'm not sure.
That's kind of where I'm at. I want to be able to tell you yes, I just want to make sure I totally understand this. And if the expense is at $395, that they're also collecting $1286 per day. You know, the difference between those two is, you know, you're not losing that full $395 a day because you're getting some of it paid back to you. So I just want to make sure we have the right amount on this thing to do the taxpayer right.
Would it, okay, I'm gonna spitball here. Would it make any difference if instead of electronic monitoring, I requested payroll reimbursement because we're also public safety? Would that make anyone feel more comfortable?
We cannot put public safety, has to go to general government, cannot go into your department. We tried that already too. We can claim it, but then it goes to the general.
I'm at the point where I think for me, it's a matter of semantics. I support them getting the money. She says she's down the money. Commissioner Brahma sounds like he understands it. She's given us numbers. She has a budget that shows. We have documentation that'll show what loss, one way or another. If she would explain it to me in a way that I can understand, I'd support it.
Right,
You know,
that's where I'm
it's,
at.
I mean, it's not your fault. It may be my fault, but I'm not understanding what I'm saying. There's obviously to me, there's a need for revenue to be replaced. Maybe this isn't the exact way that I would have wanted to explain to me, but I support moving through with it. I think it's a worthwhile project. I think the director isn't coming in here trying to get money that she doesn't believe is fully due and needed at the facility for losses incurred due to the virus. So I'm ready to support this. We have 10 o'clock bid opening, so we need to either make a decision or postpone this to later in the meeting. So I'll make a motion that we approve the COVID expenses that the director has requested in the amount of $369.95. I will move that we approve that amount. Looking for a second.
I will second that.
Have a first and a second. Is there any further discussion on the topic? All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries 2-1.
I know, I understand.
Okay, we have a couple of things that we're going to skip here. We're going to skip taking vacation time in Martin Thornburg. We're going to do the ambulance bid opening. Mayor, please proceed. And Brent, by the way, that's been working? Been streaming good?
Yep.
It is streaming. First bid on opening.
Yes, the video is working.
Okay, thank you.
This part of the meeting is for fire service. They
amount is $239,475. No trade-in value. Grand total good delivery goes $236,475. They're not really answering that.
236 what?
475.
Mr. Schneer, these are, you just did open the bid. You haven't had time to look at it, so we would examine which one of those two bids is there.
I don't know if it's got it next for me, so, okay. This is yours, this is the biggest package. American Emergency Vehicles. They have a price of $221,237.25. They are offering a trade-in on the 2009 Chevy G4500 of $3,250. Net bid, including trade, $217,887.25.
Mr. Schneer, are there any other bids?
There are not.
Okay, so we have two bids. We will take them under advisement. The Director of Ambulance Services will review those along with our attorney. And when, at what time do we need to make a decision on this?
We just need to have it on the standard that correct, covering the money. So we need to have it in order.
So would you like, is it your position you'd like the board to move on this low bidder today? Or would you like to have a couple weeks to look at it and we move?
I'd like to move today. I just have a couple minutes to review it, make sure there's no exceptions to the inspection, right?
Please, please take as much time as you need and we won't close the meeting until we hear back from you.
Okay, I'll just sit right there and do that. If you don't mind.
Is that okay with you, Commissioner Brown?
Yes.
You okay with that? Okay. Does anybody need a break?
Yes.
Okay, we will take 5 minutes and come back.
When you guys approve of it now,
Yes, just, so we're 50% ready to finish the design for this construction out.
that's basically adding that back into for the construction design, whether it's an alternative.
Yeah.
That's basically, I just want to make sure, we're real clear.
I think that's a fair, I think that's a fair representation. Put it back in so that we can bid it to make the final.
I just want to make sure.
I did want to make that, I think, one of your, last one before. Somebody in the comments made a thing and you listed along. I just appreciate that you're thorough. I think, I don't know what, how to say it other than that. I appreciate
Let
it.
people know that this is not a new project. This isn't like you guys just sat there one day and said,
Yeah,
let's make a jail.
Right, exactly, so,
It's just hard, because people see it today, because it's a hot topic. You understand that Gil Eckerly leading the charge 2017, when a group of citizens got together with the county. Look at the entire country. So
that's true.
it's just, you know.
Yes, ma'am. This is the third phase?
This is that part of that 138,000. This was safety portion of it. So we're gonna apply for this amount. We probably, we don't know.
So my only question on this, because I was trying to get these two to get on board with this, and see if there was anything that we had need, and I thought that other people were working on it. Has the feelers been put out to other people other than those that
Well,
are?
there's only 6 criteria that you can meet and really all falls under that. And that is public awareness, advertising, things on COVID.
Because the thing that I read, it had everything from people could do ramp replacement things, subsidies for those guys. I mean, there was, unless it's a
See,
different
it
program.
has to be something different than, because these are the 6.
Local safety event plans, local safety event plan. Increased inspections, public education, training. Yes, this is a different one.
Yeah, and then, and
So this is the regular through the CARES Act, the third phase. Now, there's also one that is, I think, Oakland is doing one for community.
oh,
Your
yeah.
name
Community health.
Yeah, and then see, over. is
Your name was one of these bids.
I've never been on.
Yeah.
Well, I just don't know.
I'm gonna get their support, because that's not anything.
It's not on the agenda, so I didn't know.
When does it need to be in?
You can turn this into, so if you'd like to get it sent this week.
So it needs to be.
Yeah, you can do it today.
Thank you, that is,
Yes.
I'll bring it up.
Down in the office when you're done.
thank you.
You want to go through this now?
Okay, let's get back on.
Tammy? Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I just had one question while Candy was there.
All right.
I was on a call last week with our state association, and I got the impression that there's maybe 10% additional available to county. Maybe you know about this, maybe I'm all based on this. I thought I'd bring it up to you, and maybe a phone call to IFA might be appropriate, I don't know.
Well,
Just to make sure that we're not missing out on something.
right, and that's what I'm presenting. That's what this is. This is that 10% of the additional, the 20 million that the state of Indiana was talking about. We get a certain percentage of that, and that's what this is about. Does that make sense?
Thank you.
Okay, Tammy, if you want to go ahead and talk.
Yes. As
Somebody's above me.
long as you're on top.
It's all me.
Hey, I'm just here to tell you that I'm not gonna get my vacation time used in 2020 due to this extra hours being put in and no time to take off. Actually, today was a vacation day and I'm here, so I just didn't have anything. So I would like permission to be able to carry it over to January and try to complete it. It's not a large amount, but I don't want to lose that benefit either.
I don't have any further discussion on the topic. Commissioner Brown, do you have any discussion on that topic? The handbook allows for us to give 30, you know. Go ahead, sir. I think go right ahead, I'll close your comment.
You're concerned about your vacation time, what are you proposing?
That I'd be allowed to carry it over to January to finish it out in January, so I don't lose my vacation hours. Right now, it's an 11. It may go, I don't know. Not very much, it's just a benefit I don't want to lose.
I'll make a motion that we approve the extension of vacation time for Tammy Humphrey of 11 vacation hours that must be used before the end of January per the county handbook.
I'll second.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. And one more issue that the Tammy has been working on through a part of her work for the coronavirus work that she's been doing this year. She has presented to us a plan and a application to claim some Safety Awareness CARES Act funding. The amount to be paid with this request is it the 58,000 or is it the 70?
It's the 58,000. That is our health department salary along with some equipment that's being purchased.
And the supporting documentation is here. It also covers some electronic work, is that correct?
It's for a couple computers and monitors.
These are some of the funds that we applied for through a different grant, and that ended up being pulled, and so this will make up for some of that. I've reviewed it, it looks in order to me. I would support making signing it today and allowing them to move forward so we can take advantage of at least a large portion of this fund. I did review too, Commissioner Bromas, on the qualifications for this. It says that it's good for, and I'm going to summarize these, would be for things such as local event safety planning, the locals, public health requirements, trying to, whatever resolutions or ordinances the commissioners would put in place, on-site inspections of local businesses, public education and awareness campaigns, training and education to comply with state safety measures, and any print or electronic media to prevent the initiatives set forth above. It appears to me that what they've done here qualifies within those events. So I'll make that clear to you in case you didn't have this in front of you. So I'll move that we approve signing this document for the Coronavirus Relief Fund reimbursement.
I'll second.
Safety.
So we have a first and a second. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of the motion, say aye. 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 Motion carries.
I apologize. What was that?
It's reimbursed, also.
Safety awareness,
Safety awareness.
Coronavirus Relief Fund reimbursement.
It's out of that additional 20 million that the governor.
This is a single signature. So I will sign for you.
Yes, please. It's for all of us, actually.
For you being the person that needed it to. because
I
of
want to have virus, what's it called?
the Relief Fund. Thank you for your work on that,
Thank you very
and
much.
Mr. Warner as well. Barnes and Thornburg, unless you had anything else.
No, I'm done. Thank you.
Okay. So, how's the basement?
You really want to talk about the next one now? If we are in a public meeting on camera, I'm happy to talk about it.
Did it get cleaned up?
It is all cleaned up. It was more of a mess in the downstairs. It
Because I
was,
went to your office a couple days after that, and I didn't see
we
where.
dried it all up with fans, and the problem was it was antifreeze, and it was just not a very fun day. But we got it all cleaned up now. Thank you, Chad.
You're welcome.
Bring us a copy of this thing.
Do it.
Barnes and Thornburg engagement letter, Mr. Schneider? Do you have the document, or is it just the electronic version?
I asked the electronic version of all hard copy.
So, I reviewed the engagement letter, and there wasn't a place for a signature. There wasn't, I don't see it as a formal contract. Is that accurate? And it's more of an hourly basis, or is there something that I missed that maybe the county does need to sign?
Maybe we just approve it in its form, and I will follow up with Rick. Offer a
Okay.
Trying to find it.
Commissioner Hofstadter, did you have any questions, comments on Barnes and Thornburg? Commissioner Bromas, same question?
No, I do not, I go on the recommendation of our attorney.
And we'll be happy to report to the board that the Barnes and Thornburg, the relationship we've had with them so far, the level of expertise that they've had and brought forward, I've been pleased with our relationship so far. So I will say that it's been going well and making steady progress. They have presented to
I'm
us.
happy to hear that.
They presented to us a map, or not a map, a timetable of going forward of the various steps. The first step on that map, or that timeline going forward, was for the appointment of the three gentlemen that we've appointed earlier for the Building Corporation Lease Board. So as of today, we are on schedule and they are working with our other people to ensure that we are on a timeline that works. So Mr. Schneer did find that we have a contract.
There is a spot agreed and consent to by Board of Commissioners, and I'm having HR print this off.
So we will review that for final signatures here in a moment. It looks like we have maybe had time to review the ambulance bids that happened at 10 o'clock. We had one from Fire Service Incorporated and American Emergency Vehicles. It appears that on the surface, the American Emergency Vehicle was considerably the lower bidder, and we'll see if they met the criteria.
Yes, thank you. And that is true. I would like to recommend that we accept the bid of AEV for $221,237.25 with a trade-in value on that ambulance of $3,250 for a net cost of $217,887.25. I looked through it. There are no exceptions to the specifications. It is identical to the two that we accepted delivery on earlier this year, and we're very pleased with those so far. Other than it's a newer model, it's 2021, those are 2019. So it just makes the most sense to go with that. I looked at the other one, and even it is a little bit higher, but there are some exceptions to the specifications. Length is a little bit shorter. If we want the length that they specified, it's an additional $2,000. It's only got 2 batteries as compared to the 3 batteries that we requested. So I think it makes sense to go with the lower.
And if we had, we've made purchases from this company in the past,
Absolutely.
so that we've had a decent relationship. There's no reason not to use them. And would it be your recommendation to the board to give them the trade-in, or do we have an alternative method?
No, I am not aware of any organization in the county where we've given them to the sheriff's department and things like that in the past, but I do not know of any organization in the county that would be interested in that. It's got almost 300,000 miles. It's had a good life. And it's probably come to
Okay. Any questions from the board or any comments, concerns? Seeing none here in person, Commissioner Bromas?
No, I don't think I know that maybe it was the cost of getting stuff in the new ambulance that we're in kind of real. The one I built in for $3, pretty hard.
So I believe that sounds like a complaint of the softness of the mats.
They are horrible. I will admit, they are horrible. We've looked at different things. You know, it is a truck. It is not a luxury vehicle by any means. These new ones that we bought, I am getting a lot of compliments that they are, from people who have rode in the older ones and then these, that they are so much smoother.
I think she's telling you that you need to try out the new one.
No,
Take that how you wish.
We do the best we can, Art.
And I will say again, I'm just kidding. The care that I received was excellent. Personnel was excellent, and I appreciate that.
Good to hear, Elmer. I hope you're doing better.
Which vehicle is in here? Is that
The 2009,
2009, I think I have, I don't have the VIN number in here. I can give it to you.
I think we only have one 2009.
Yes, it's the last one.
okay, so I will make a motion that we approve the bid from American Emergency Vehicles in the amount of $217,887.25. That's including the amount that they were paying for the trade-in of the 2009.
Second.
I have a first and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Motion carries. Thank you.
gentlemen.
Mr. Schneider, do you have it ready or you need a few more moments?
I have the Gordon part. His signature on and then it was on the paper that.
Does anyone on the board need additional time to review the Barnes and Thornburg engagement letter? Hearing none, I will move that we approve signing of the engagement letter with Barnes and Thornburg as it was presented December 7th. The first and a second, all in favor, say aye. Aye.
I,
Motion carries. Assessor Geisler. Good morning.
Good morning. I just have an addendum to the contract that we have with, our council up in Indianapolis, through Nexus Group. Her name is Marilyn Min, that she counsels us for property tax appeals when they are filed at the state level. So her services are crucial to, to give us the expertise we need to represent, or representation when we have those type of appeals that we have to.
Could you speak up just a little bit, because it may be hard for Commissioner Bromas to hear. The reason you get them is for property tax appeals, and maybe you have additional questions on it, you need some additional expertise.
Well, she represents us at state appeal for property tax.
Yes.
For assessment. So, and we've had, this has been an ongoing contract we've had with her since 2008, and it's just an addendum, changing the hourly rate that they're gonna charge.
And it went down. No, okay, what's the difference here, just for the record?
It was at 120, it's at 175.
Has the county attorney had a chance to review the
Yes,
document?
he has, I emailed it to him. I emailed both the previous contract and this addendum, just.
It was a good addendum.
Was there anything additional that we need to be concerned about other than the price? And your office will be responsible for knowing how much you need budgeted for it and what it costs, so I don't have any problem with signing the addendum.
I don't have any problem.
Can you give me a little more, I mean, how much, who, I didn't catch those.
So we're talking, but
It's an addendum to the contract for professional property tax services. The addendum is between Nexus Group, NEXUS, and the county assessor, and the commissioners. And it's just, they're just, it's an addendum just to clarify what the rate of hourly services is going to be, going forward. And the previous contract, was at $120 an hour, and this was at $175. And that previous contract was dated 2011. So it's over 10 years old.
county commissioners have worked with a number of attorneys recently, and $120 an hour isn't bad.
Yeah. So that's been updated. And that's really the only purpose of the addendum is just to clarify what the hourly rate will be going forward.
But as Sandy catches up, what kind of yearly expense is that for the county?
Depends.
I mean, is it like $5,000, $50,000?
Depends on how many appeals we have to file. This past year, it's not been much because we didn't have any large appeal that we had to go to actually have a state hearing for. I anticipate this coming year is probably going to be more. We have an appeal that's being filed on Home Depot that we are contesting. So there's going to be some expenses involved in that one. So it just depends on each year.
These would be ones that in the past, maybe at a dark store, and there was a discussion on what it should be assessed at, and sometimes this takes goes through the local appeals process. Most of the time, your office will try to informally fix it. It'll come to a discussion. If it doesn't, it goes to the local board, then to the state board for a final determination. So this is definitely something that's important and necessary. So do you have the document?
I have the document. I don't know how you do this as far as getting his signature, or
I have a bunch that need to sign, so
you can file it. Then once you get Elmer's signature, you can forward that to me.
move that we approve the addendum to the contract for professional property tax services as presented.
I'll second.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. The motion carries. Thank you.
Good.
Merry Christmas.
Okay, Merry Christmas to you.
Mr. Hope,
That's good.
right on time like every
On time. I'm here to see what you guys want to do with the generator, old one out at 911 Center.
You got any bids on it?
I got one guy that offered something. I called, 4 or 5 different companies that buy generators, and 2 of them said it's too old, 2 of them said too big. So, basically got one guy. He works for the county.
I think my discussions with Mr. Hope and just knowing a little bit about the generator and where we are, I think it would be in the best interest of the county to declare this item as a surplus item that is no longer in need of the county. The county doesn't have any use for it anymore. And I would recommend that we ask Mr. Hope to make an effort to get top dollar for it. And I think from my understanding, the top dollar would be probably anything over $1,000 would probably be about what it would be. So that's where I'm starting the conversation. I'm happy to hear other feedback.
Can we reach out to like, carbon selling services over in Huntingburg or the Greater Auction Center in Washington and have them listed? They do a lot of their stuff online now, so you probably have to furnish a few pictures and then put it online. And I can't imagine we're gonna get better than what we're gonna get in some service like that.
I can call them and see what they.
Okay, because like Frankfurt, for example, I know they have auctions.
Do we have to take what their bid
I
is?
think we have to take what it is. But if you got a guy that's willing to pay just $10,000 for it,
He offered this amount.
so he could bid that amount, or we could set that as our little bid, reserve. And have it auctioned off.
This guy said he's willing to get rid of it right away. Who we got, so.
I mean,
So just to clarify kind of what we did, I put it on Facebook and asked on our website and asked if anybody had any offers to contact Mr. Hope. Nobody contacted him from that posting. And then you've made multiple calls to the contractors, the people that put the new one in.
We got, the people that supplied the new generator, they're not interested. The people that service all they live on, they're not. He would give us something, he said nothing. So, and then I called 4 or 5 other companies, and then this guy, the highway garage, when they poured the concrete, he threw out a price at me. I talked to him Friday, I think Thursday or Friday. Him and his dad come out and looked at it, and they're interested in it.
At the same price that we talked
That's
about.
what he told me, what we.
So I believe, long story short, I guess there's no reason to be coy. It's one offer we had from a business was around $1,000. Is that correct? And then we had this one for $1,500.
One company gave me $1,000, and then the guy from Highway Garage, he said $1,500. And they would be willing to get it very soon.
and so there's a reason to try to get out of there very soon. I mean,
Other than it's an eyesore.
if we could get it.
I mean, how does this service work?
People go there looking for this type of thing, whereas when you post to Facebook.
I mean, this is a big generator.
But somebody that has a rollback, truck or rent rollback truck probably.
But I mean, you're gonna have to have a big building to even be interested in it. And then it's
I don't know
only,
what type of person. I just know they have equipment options weekly down there. That might be a good way to get top dollar for it.
Commissioner Brown, what are your thoughts?
I think I would agree with Jeff declaring the surplus and taking the bid that we have. I agree that we might get a little bit more if we put it on some kind of an auction I know the highway department has used those types of services. I know we bought a truck or two, off of those places. But, stop sign is important too. And, I don't know that the benefit would outweigh the, cost of doing that.
And
I don't know how.
initially, I would have sided with you saying, let's be diligent, let's look. And the number of phone calls, things that he's made, and those are the kind of people that I would think would want it. And then there was not any interest. Generally, I would say yes. In this case, I would hate to put it in auction. It brings,
I mean, I don't know how long these guys are willing to wait either.
yeah, I would be fine with, first, I'm gonna make a motion that we declare the generator, the old generator as surplus. So we'll start there. Have a second? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion carries. Now, as far as, disposal of said generator, I will make a motion that we give give Mr. Hope the ability to sell the generator at the best dollar he can get. I believe that being $1,500 at a minimum. If that offer still stands, so that's what I would offer, or I would say that I move that we give him the ability to sell the product for $1,500 or better. Say another bid would come in. Okay. We got a first and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion carries. And, Mr. Oak, you have anything else for us today?
That's all I'm doing.
I do real quick.
Yes.
I have several other conversations about the restrooms down here. They would like to have public restrooms. Is there any way that we can provide public restrooms for downtown residents? I mean, what would be the moving parts of that?
You have to lock up the window door every night. I mean, you have to, I guess, secure lock it, computerize it. I mean, there's a lot of stuff down there that can. There's lots of them damage.
I understand.
I mean, is it the county's responsibility to supply?
No, not necessarily.
Well, when they do this renovation, there's supposed to be one over here
Okay,
in the parking lot.
okay, and I even suggested that, I said,
There's one in the drawing.
really nice if there was one, that brick pad over here. in
That's where it's
this
supposed to
parking
be.
lot. That would make the most sense. In the meantime, maybe we can just work with downtown merchants. I know there's, during the Spokane holidays, they needed them and stuff like that. I asked the police come to us in advance, give us some time to plan it out, because it's not as simple as just, yes, I'm off the door. But I guess I would just ask that we kind of work with them in the time being until this one over here gets built. And go from there.
And my discussion with Mr. Hope was, it wasn't a no, let's don't do it. It wasn't a yes, let's do it. It's one of those that, let's see if it's possible, because what I don't want to happen is there to be vandalism in the restroom. Somebody breaks something and there's water running on it all night, or I don't know.
I understand.
Some of the moving parts, so I'm not saying
not
no.
necessarily saying that we should leave them, open all the time. I'm just saying, like some kind of holidays is a good example of a good time to leave them open.
It was open for that day.
Okay, when they do the food trucks down here, good time, we do it there. I'm just asking if we work with them, because I understand their concern. They don't have public restrooms like, in the newer building with, they have a tiny little toilet, in many cases. So I want to be a good neighbor to our.
I mean, as long as we give notice, I mean, we can set the doors, I mean, the wooden door has to be manually locked right now because we don't have no timer on that. Outside door we do, but usually we'll always hear Lady, when he leaves, he locks it up. And then Mike sets it, the other door to open and close automatically.
I mean, even if we had they did I think the food truck thing was supposed to be every so many, say it's every third Wednesday or something. Then we do that ahead of time, we would part for them to do it.
Right. And I said that, I said, I really don't think it's, we're that hard to deal with on that. I think it was a matter of.
I think the food truck was a matter of the COVID situation.
Right, so it was kind of the last minute situation. We got asked, but typically we asked that, that gets approved prior to anything, so. They didn't really understand that it takes that long. We only meet every 2 weeks.
I think the answer is we want to collaborate and be a good friend with our friends, and we'll do that.
Okay.
And, yeah,
As long as they give me notice, I'm not
And
gonna.
I'm really happy to hear they're building like that. It's funny.
Well, I know,
I even said, hey, they ought to just put one on that brick pad up there.
that's in the drawing now.
I mean,
I think it's-
I think Brett knows more about it than I do.
I think my understanding is that that's not their preference.
They don't like it.
They want to protest to horrify our rather than.
Every day.
Every day, all day, like overnight.
They will
I
till
guess my
8 or 9
question
o'clock
would
at
be the
night.
expense. I mean, there is expense to it. There's
Right.
cleaning, there's upkeep, there's maintenance, and not only that, there's supplies.
There's a lot to be damaged too down there. That's mine.
Well, I mentioned too.
And then the one door's an issue. I mean,
Not the place.
yeah, because if somebody would come out,
But, I mean, what would stop somebody from doing something like that when there's no one there to watch? I mean, we don't have somebody constantly watching the cameras. If somebody vandalizes, you have to watch the cameras and say, hey, this is who we think did it. But if they do something a little more malicious, we might not be able to review the camera footage.
I think if we were probably being realistic about it, it would be have them open from 8 to 2 o'clock on Saturdays and Sundays and close at 7 during the week. I don't think that we would do anything any more than that. Whatever it is, enough to serve the people. There's no need to have open at midnight.
on a non-busy day, you can get some kids in there.
Sure.
Very.
We'd have to definitely make considerations. That and plus, are we going to pay someone to come in every night and make sure that maybe the door will automatically lock, but that doesn't mean there's not somebody still inside. So, I mean, there's things to consider, but I want to be a partner if we can. If, whatever that looks like.
Yeah, they were open on,
Right, I can
Probably
tell
all
you
day
the
for the-
exception.
you guys.
And there was another issue with your time, is there anything with that we need to discuss today?
No.
You're good shape there? Okay.
Should be it.
Merry Christmas, Scott, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
We've got about 5 minutes until.
Do I need to do anything, just get a check from him, or?
Yes, I think that was carried, and you would just deliver to,
Me?
your name is Du Bois County. No. Yes, the answer is no.
You see yourself in orange?
Not that merry of a Christmas, guys.
I try.
All right, so we have about 5 minutes until our next agenda item. So we'll just see what else we've got on our agenda here. I'm going to try to get this in. I sent an email to the department heads on, I believe it was Thursday of last week, because I had a concern from an employee about the county going to code red, and that there being a discussion possibly of finding a way to limit the number of people that go into the courthouse. For fear of spread of the virus. And what I wanted to do today was discuss the information I received from those offices. It looks like I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, about 15 offices responded. And I'll just give you a general, I won't give you specifics unless you request them, but I would say that from at least 3 offices, they said that this is a very busy time of the year and they need to stay open in some way, because us not being open can adversely affect people in the community by not being able to either record something or file a deduction or get something done that is time sensitive. So that I did get that from several people. Some of the outlying smaller offices, such as CASA and child support, some of them, they are doing they're limiting the number of people that are coming in already anyway. There's some of these offices just don't have a need for a lot of flow of the public anyway. So to them, there was a little bit of indifference, I guess. One office was having people, they were requesting people have an appointment, and when if the person did have an appointment, they go outside to meet them. Just everybody's doing what they can to keep county functions happening the best they can under the circumstances. Trying to see here, mainly, well, one piece of feedback that I thought was interesting, and it had me thinking, and maybe Mr. Werner can talk about this when he's here a little bit later, is that the intention of lockdown and limiting people is to flatten the curve, make sure that the hospitals don't get overwhelmed. And it was suggested to me that maybe I check with the hospital, see if they're overwhelmed. And so that's what I did. And it seems like their numbers are higher than they were several months ago. I used to get the daily numbers of their ICU beds, of different things. I got updates on those recently, and there's still beds available in our ICU. I don't know how much this private information would is, so I'm not going to give a whole lot of information on what the hospital has shared with our decision makers, but there's still space available. It's not that we have 5 people waiting to get into ICU beds or anything like that. There are beds available for people at this time. So I guess you can make your own definition of what overwhelmed is. I think they are working hard. I think there are a lot of people being tested and a lot of positive cases, and that people are being very cautious, and our healthcare workers have been under a lot of stress this year. But to say that we still have some capacity, I guess is what I would say. And I know that other places within the state and the country don't necessarily, but I think we still do at this time. So I'd be open to hearing from the other commissioners if they think there is a need for us to make any changes at this time, or if they think we should continue business as usual until something else changes. And I guess I can give you my thought on it would be that at least for the next 2 short weeks, when there's only 3 days a week that people will have access to our county buildings, I would say that at a minimum, we put this decision off until I believe it's a January 4th meeting, possibly would be my thought, and see where we are at that time. But I'm definitely open to other thoughts and suggestions.
No, I would agree that we need to keep county business moving. Don't get me wrong, we need to take our precautions, make sure when people come in are wearing a mask, and keep their hands clean, etc. But business needs to keep on moving. We can't just lock it down and shut it down. So I would agree, at least for the next 2 weeks, that we need to keep doing what we're currently doing.
Thank you. Commissioner Bramas?
Yeah, I think the next 2 weeks we could do that. I think, of course, if we get shut it down, our main concern is the health and safety of our employees and the citizens who are using the building. I don't know that I have sensed that we have an issue with spread within our buildings. That doesn't mean that somebody couldn't bring it in, but if everybody is masked and taking the correct precautions, maybe we really don't have an issue with spread. A couple of things, recommendations that I would make. First of all, we consider what the city of Jasper is doing, and they are shutting down, I think, until mid-January or something like that. But, and then secondly, I would lean on any recommendation that the health department would give us.
Okay, and Mr. Warner did just walk in, so whenever he's up here on the agenda in a little while, maybe he can give us his thoughts on any feedback related to that. And Commissioner Bramas, did the city of Jasper make that announcement public already? It was on Facebook yesterday. Okay, I haven't seen it or I haven't heard of it. So I guess it's public. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the dates are, but
It's till the 17th of January.
And it says by appointment only is what they're doing.
No, it says close to the public,
That sounds
use
cool.
utility drive.
Use utility drive up close to the public. Okay. All right. Judy, you want to come up, please? Good morning. Thanks for being here.
The reason I'm here, Mark, you suggested that I come in, I have an employee who is not going to be able to use all his vacation time before the end of the calendar year. He is planning on taking time off next week, but he'll have 6 more days. And, his workload has not really allowed him to take the time off prior to this, so I was just requesting that.
So the handbook says if it's for a county need, this person can't take their vacation time, if we can provide an additional month for them to do that. Has it been, you're his supervisor,
Yes,
and has it been due to a county need that he hasn't been able to take his vacation time?
yes, he's been working on re-inspections for county landowners for the CRP program, Conservation Reserve Program. There were 2 deadlines that had to be met. The first one began in July, ended September 30th. And then immediately there was another one that started. He is just this week finishing up all the paperwork associated with the second deadline. So it directly helps the landowners in the county.
And he thinks he will be able to, or do you believe he'll be able to make use of those days next month?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Commissioner Hostetter or Ramos, any comments?
I'm okay with that.
Justin Berry.
I'm good with that. If Judy's recommending that, then I'm good with it.
Okay. So with that issue, I will move that we allow this employee to move their time as long as it is used by the end of January of 2021. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
That motion carries. I have another question for you while you're
Yes.
here. It has to do with your location and your facility and what you do there and your space needs.
Okay.
If there was to be space in the county courthouse in the future or the annex building, would there be a desire or do you have a need for any space other than additional to where you are now? Or is it something you'd like to think about and get back to me?
Right now, I would say probably I need to get back with you. We are co-located with the federal agencies for a reason, and we all have the same customers and we work on the same project. So that is the reason why we're co-located with them.
So who are you co-located? It's USDA,
Yes.
Soil and Water, and is Purdue out there?
And they're in the same building. Yeah, they're in the building.
Right.
Yeah.
But you're basically saying between you and the USDA are the
Yes,
two.
yeah, we all have the same customers and we're working on the same type of thing. So that's the reason why we're looking in the office.
So even if you needed more space, you would say, well, I have to weigh that against the benefits of being next to
Right,
someone we work with.
right.
Because one of the concerns that we're hearing from the public is that if we move anybody out of here, there's going to be less foot traffic downtown. Are there some people that we could backfill in? And so I wasn't sure of what your situation was, but I know for Purdue Extension, for example, earlier this year, they came in and said, we're pretty stuffed in here. We need to consider getting more space. They had a need that they demonstrated, but I didn't know if you did. So that's why I was asking about.
I know, I think we're in good shape.
Okay. If you have any other thoughts on it you want to share, just please reach back.
All right.
Anything else for,
How much vacation time are you saying?
He has 63 hours right now.
63 hours.
Yes, and he is going to use 3 days next week, so he'll be using 27 hours next week, so he'll have 6 days. That he'll need to take in January.
Is he a 7-hour day or an 8-hour day?
7 hours.
6,
42 hours to be used?
7-hour day.
So, he's got 63 hours right now. So he will, if he takes 27 of them, he'll have 6 days yet to take next week. I'm sorry?
I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry, my math is wrong, 24, sorry. Yeah, sorry. I'm sorry.
Very well, I'm done.
So how many hours is he carrying forward? Yes, it's gonna be the question.
Carrying forward, you will have 42
63 minus 24. That's 387
hours.
hours.
321. I'm so sorry.
21, yeah.
All right.
So no,
63 minus 21, you got 43, or 40. He's
42.
got 42 left for next
Yeah,
year,
we'll
6
be
times
carrying-
7.
Sorry about that. You're keeping me honest.
He's a mathematician, but
Right.
attorney.
in this room, yeah.
State of the Holiday Express.
So 42 hours, right here at forward. That's all I need to know.
Thank you. I think that's all good as we have. So, I'll go see if Mr. Rhodes is available for, if he's on the phone. In that case, I'm gonna get a soda out of that office. Or you need. I don't ask any questions out there.
Can you go to online? He's on vacation. Are you here for the hair?
Yeah.
Okay.
Brooke, yeah, you realize you wait till I get there. That's your copy.
You'll have that too. And that's probably not everyone, if that's.
What's that? Don't change it. What is the way
It's cold.
Is it? It's 1071 and it's 769.
But I was saying, you guys are comfortable. I'm always cold.
On my chair, it's hot. Around the guys, I have to leave forward sometimes.
Everything over has signs supposedly there, except for. Do I have to, upload that?
Yes.
Do we have to terminate the other one?
Off the site, we terminate it.
I meant. Elmer, how do you want, about get your signature on this form? That sounds great. You just let me know. That sounds good.
I'll make a note. I'll make a note. You're welcome.
Excuse me?
I bet you would go get it. Yeah. You're right.
What you put in there? Now. I don't think that's what I want my property.
If that's the case, you're gonna cut the Steve's whole office out.
What is it?
You're gonna lose roughly 32 square feet.
Hey, I don't have one. Why do you need one?
What is it?
It's an arrowhead. It's a cheese license.
Sue? Sue?
I say,
I'll be retired by the time that's here. So, just saying. I'm not, I can't sit back there.
All right, let's, get back to it. Mr. Rhodes is, he's dealing with an employee issue that is, time sensitive, so I told him that we would pass over his point and he will come back in here in a little bit. So, do you, Mr. Hofstadter, think we should hold on to talk to Mr. Warner? Because I don't know that anybody in the public would want to come, but I hate getting ahead of ourselves on the agenda. He's an 11:15.
He got added to the,
I'm not on the old one.
Okay.
he got on the
That's the
new
old
one.
one, that's all I'm serious.
I sent you guys out the one before, I put the stuff on it because we were still working on, and then I sent that out.
Years ago, I printed them and I show up and I have to.
So let's do this. Sandy, was the were appointments not on, I thought they were on the agenda originally. No, I mean, they're not on the agenda. I thought we had a time for, is it on your old one?
No, I didn't,
Okay.
because we just brought them over. I mean, we discussed it last time, it was just a matter of formalizing.
Yeah, I'm gonna do it from my list and then I can work on this in a little bit. So let's go ahead and do our appointments while we, are here. I believe I have everything that we, the most current information here. So let's go ahead and do that. I will read these off, and this will, we'll ask for a single motion at the end to approve all of them. Unless there's an issue. So the first one, the 4-H Council, Tyler Kissel will be our appointment. I had talked with Gavin Dirkles, who's our current person on the board, and he said that Tyler, the way that they have things set up out there, Tyler will be the one that will be our representative. Gavin has to step off due to their rules of operation. And so, does anybody have a problem with Tyler Kissel? Okay. So we'll start with Tyler Kissel, 4-H Council Board. 911 Advisory Board, Chad Blessinger and Scott Ubler. Airport Board, Michael Cummings. Alcohol Beverage Commission, David Ring. Ambulance Coordinator, Susan Hinkie. DuBois Strong, Elmer Ramos. Ken Eck will continue on as the Board of Animal Health. Community Corrections Advisory Board, Judge Burkamp and CASA will work out their appointment for that position. Galen Laubscher for Contractual Public Library Board. Scott Hope for Custodian. Mr. Schneer will continue on as the County Attorney. The President of the Board of Commissioners, to be determined at our first meeting in January, will serve as the member of the DuBois County Child Protection Team. For the Emergency Management Advisory Council, looks like everyone is reappointed. There are a number of them here. I guess I can read this for the record. Doug Ubler, Nick Hostetler, Dean Vonderheide, Tom Kleinhelter, Ken Sicard, Brett Eckert, Tom Thacker, Jennifer Durr.
I've not heard that.
Okay, and then the new mayor of Huntingburg, Mr. Schwinghammer, will fill the position of Mayor Spinner. And Commissioner Hofstadter, did you get Steve Grunhofer? You said he's.
Yeah, we will replace him with Ryan Becker.
Ryan.
That's Becher.
Okay, so Ryan Becker for Verdant Planning Commission. Lori Lubehusen for the Health Board. And Mesmer will continue as the Highway Clerk. Brent Winhope for the Highway Engineer. Highway Supervisor Stephen Berg. The Huntingburg Planning Commission, Dennis Whitson. Commissioner Hostetter on Indiana 15 Regional Planning Commission. Randy Maringer for the Jasper Planning Commission. Northeast DuBois Fire Protection. Commissioner Hostetter confirmed there that Randy Leakin will do that one, will serve that position again. Toka Lake Regional Water and Sewer District, Commissioner Ramos. Tax Board of Appeals, Brian Smith and Dwayne Pearson. Ken Seacard for Solid Waste Management District Board. Tourism. Diane Obenjohn is continuing on in that position. I will take the place of Dr. Taylor for the TRICAP Board of Directors. Amber Harris is our Veteran Service Officer, and Mr. Berg will continue leading the charge on the Weed Control Board. Are there any discussions, comments, questions, or concerns on those appointments? Commissioner Ramos, any concerns? Okay, I move that we approve that list as presented.
I'll second.
All in favor of the appointments, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. The motion carries. So it looks like I have some things to, looks like a number of us have things to sign here. So we will sign those at the end of the meeting. Commissioner Hostetter and Commissioner Ramos, you can come in at another time. Does that sound fair?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Rhodes? Thank you.
All right, so what I want to talk about today is the COVID-19 employee policy that we were going to effect on 1/1/2021. So some background, I'm going to say FFCRA a lot. That is the Families First Coronavirus Response Act. So that's a little bit of background here. That's federal law set to expire on 12/31/20. So any employee on leave for COVID-related situations would not receive paid leave after 12/31/20. Given the code red status of DuBois County and the fact that we will have employees out on leave starting in January of 2021, we've got to have some form of policy in place for that. To run some numbers for you, effective 12/21/20 today, we have had 65 employees take the FFCRA leave in some form. That is accounted for 2,534.25 hours paid time. So, as I've been working this out, payrolls today, we're actually up to about 69 employees before I came over here. So you can tell the numbers increasing drastically. I got three options here, two of them, option one and option two, probably the two extremes off of both sides, and then option three is kind of a compromise toward the middle. So option one would basically use our pre-COVID policy before COVID was even here. If you were out regardless of the situation, you would use your PTO time for those hours missed not working. The big problem I see with that is the need to quarantine and isolate. People come to work because they don't want to exhaust half their leave just sitting at home quarantining or isolating. So that's a concern of mine. Option two, at the county level, we can extend the practices of the FFCRA paid leave portion of the law only, which will allow up to 2 weeks pay for those that have not used or have not maxed out their allotted time under FFCRA guidelines. The remote work, as it is for now, would be the first option, and then of course if you're too sick, you'd be allowed to use those paid leave.
So on this one, let me look at this before we move on. So out of these 2 weeks, you're saying the remote work. So I mean, that's not, I mean, that doesn't really change a whole lot. I mean, if people can do their work remotely, it would be outside of the normal policy, but the county would still be being made whole, so it's not like we're paying people not to work.
Correct.
If they're too sick, then yeah, they would use paid leave. Okay, so you're basically saying, let's make it an option for remote work.
Correct.
That's it.
And under option 2, it would be the same guidelines under FFCRA. If you are out with COVID-related situations, you're up to 2 weeks paid leave. So that would be those too sick to work for those departments that don't have telework options.
I guess I look at it, that it's not leave if you're working from home.
Correct.
So
Yes.
it depends how you look at it. Okay, thank you.
Option 3, that's to continue to allow remote working opportunities for those that have been identified as close contact or positive for COVID-19. If employees cannot remote work or do not have enough tasks to complete as a scheduled work day, they would be allowed to use PTO, comp time, or unpaid time. Further details there. An employee positive COVID-19, they would be required to turn in the official paperwork confirming the positive results. This would activate FMLA and serve as a certification. Under PTO guidelines, they would be allowed to remote work if possible. If that's not an option, they would be allowed to use accrued sick, PTO, comp, or unpaid time. Employees required to quarantine due to being in close contact. Required to turn in paperwork requesting work arrangement, requesting time off in accordance with CDC's updated guidance of 7 to 14 days, depending on the situation. Again, remote work if possible, and if that's not an option, they would be able to elect PTO, comp, or unpaid time. Put a note in here, accrued sick will only be allowed for FMLA qualifying events, but you have to be positive for COVID-19 to get into your accrued sick. Employees impacted by school, child care arrangement closures due to COVID-19 will be allowed to remote work if possible up to 10 days per closure. If that's not an option, they would be allowed to use PTO, comp, or unpaid time. And then employees caring for an individual inside their household for isolation, quarantine, or not being able to attend school due to being in close contact will be allowed to remote work up to 10 days per occurrence. If that's not an option, it would be allowed PTO, comp, or unpaid time. This option 3 is kind of the in between option 1 and option 2. It's got some compromises in there. Benefit is we got to have something to serve as a direction for not only the employees but also the department heads in 2021. Of course, this policy, if we adopted it today, would serve as our policy until federal or state come up with something that would supersede it. As of right now, there's nothing on the table that would extend that FFCRA law right now, so I don't see that as being an option to at least the early part of January.
I guess I was looking at, I haven't been keeping up on it as much recently, but I would think that the feds, in my understanding, watching how they've operated historically, they wait until 5 minutes before the world's gonna end and then they'll act.
Yeah.
So I would expect that they will act.
Yeah.
So I think whatever we do today will likely be superseded. That being said, I don't think that it's a bad idea to have a plan in place barring that happening, thinking that wouldn't happen. I didn't know how I felt before I came in this morning. I reviewed some of these, but after doing a little consideration here while Ms. Rhodes was talking, I mean, I'm definitely, I think I can definitely be in favor of option 3. It's an option that allows for people to still work, still get paid, for the department heads and the county to work hand in hand with an employee, make sure that they still have income, and make sure that we're still getting the council work done that the county needs. If you can't work and you're sick, well, then you can still get paid for that. There's been a lot of work done on that PTO plan to give you the flexibility to use that to protect the employee. So I like that option initially. I'm open for discussion for Commissioner Bromas. Start there.
I think I agree. Anything we can do to keep the county work continuing. And you know, working with employees to help them keep that work going, is beneficial.
Thank you. Commissioner Hofstadter.
I agree too. I think option 3 is our best option. And like you said, there's a good chance we're going to get superseded at some point, but as of right now, that would probably be the best route to go.
At least, you know, coming back after the holidays, employees, department heads, everybody will know what our action plan is. That's the big thing.
And as a side note, I've reviewed a little bit of research on remote work, and I think the concern of a lot of people is, oh, people are sitting at home, they're not doing anything. And I think that the research that I've found is that people are just as productive or more productive when they're at home. So I don't have the same concern I may have had 6 months ago. I don't think I have the same concern now. I think that the majority of employees will do the full day's work that their supervisor gives them. If there's any fault to be added, maybe if it's supervisor, it may be something within that, but I think that people will do a good job working from home if that's possible or necessary. So I will move that we approve option 3 as the policy of DuBois County effective 1/1/2021 as it relates to the COVID-19 situation. So we have a first and a second. One thing I will ask Commissioner or Mr. Schnapp, is there any other things we need to worry about or consider when doing implementing this policy that you can think of from a legal standpoint?
Realize too that someone will grab from the federal and state, and when that happens, we'll adjust course.
Yes, sir. The only thing I would recommend is if you will work with whoever you need to, you probably have good resources, but making sure that if we're going to require any paperwork from somebody, that we are legally allowed to request or have possession of said paperwork. If it's someone's personal medical information or whatnot, I'm sure you probably do with that, but just make sure we don't take or request something that we shouldn't do.
Correct.
So I've got a first and a second. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Motion carries. Thank you for working on that policy. Thanks. Appreciate it. Next up, we have Mr. Warner. Test site update.
So we did receive the ability now to do the 15-minute rapid test. We got the clear waiver, everything is good to go with that. The only thing that we need to take care of now is to amend the testing site contract so that Blue Ridge Group can perform the test according to our contract. And I think Mr. Schneider has come up with an amendment to make that happen. So he's going to go ahead and come through real quick and get any questions I can help you.
So based upon this change, new available services, existing contract didn't provide for that, so an addendum was needed. I sent a proposed draft out to parties on Friday. One was changes in the scope of work, allowing them to administer the rapid test and basically go from start to finish, including the notification. In addition to them taking on the ability to do that class, resulted in additional staffing that they would have. That would call for additional claims to be filed with the county. My conversation with Mr. Warner, the grant that we got from the state will cover these costs. And those claims will start getting processed January 1st, so the testing could start as early as we sign it. So with that, I did prepare an addendum for the commissioners to authorize Mr. Warner to execute on the county's behalf, and Mr. Warner's taking care of getting that to the Blue Ridge Group for their review and approval as well.
So I looked up a little bit on this. I'm in favor of it. I think people desire it. It would be something I would want if I was going to go get a test. 15 minutes beats 4 days in some cases, depending on the quantity. So on the surface, I'm definitely in favor of signing it. The one thing I would, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that it's a different kind of test. It test for the antigen, not the molecule, and that there are higher levels of false positives with this 15-minute test. So if people know that going in, then, then I'm okay with it. They're still a reliable test, but it's less reliable than the traditional test that we are holding currently. Does that sound accurate to you?
Yes, and there is going to be criteria to be able to use this 15-minute test. We are going to come up with that in a press release probably today or tomorrow once we work it out with the Blue Ridge Group. So more than likely, it's looking like we are only going to use this for symptomatic individuals within 7 days of symptoms. That's what the specific guidelines on the test are. So that's what we're going to follow. So if you're a close contact, you're not going to be able to use this round of test. We want to try to get those symptomatic people taken care of, in a timely manner so they're not spreading it further. So that's what we're going to start out with, see how that works. If we have to, open it up to close contacts, then we always can, but at this point, we're not going to.
There's no worry about the supply, availability of these supplies.
That's another reason why we want to see how it goes first. We would have a decent amount in-house right now, but, with the testing the way it is, they could be exhausted in literally a week or two.
Commissioner Hostetter?
I don't think further than that.
But we haven't worked all the details out with the testing side yet of how people are going to register, who's going to get them. So that will be coming out in the press release once we get all that details finalized.
Commissioner Brown?
No, I'm in agreement. I think anything we can do to improve the testing capability, we should do it.
Okay, thank you. So you have the document with you?
Mr. Chairman.
I did not print one that required John's signature on it.
Okay.
So it didn't require the board's, just the board's.
So if you are giving him the authority to sign on behalf of
That's
this
the original one, which is one. This person.
I will move that we give the director authority to sign the addendum for this testing. First and second, any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. You can sign that and we'll be in that business, I suppose. Is there anything else you would like to share with us today?
Yeah, I did have one other thing that I need to get addressed. I have 2, possibly 3 employees just like this, that are probably not going to get their vacation days in just because of all that's going on with COVID and the lack of staffing I've had over the past couple of weeks have not allowed certain individuals to take their vacation. So I have Lisa with 2 vacation days and Jennifer with 3. Emily.
How many hour employees are they? 7 hours?
7 hours.
So we're looking at 14 and 21?
Yes, and then Emily has 2 days left, but she has them scheduled before the end of the year. But if something unforeseen comes up that she can't take off, she might possibly have 2. So I would like to get approval for those 3 individuals that, if need be, they can use them up until January 31st.
14 hours. What did you say the other one was?
Lisa had 14, Emily has 14, and Jennifer has 21.
So we
Emily
will,
has 14. Sorry, I'm typing it.
Emily 14.
Jennifer 21, Lisa 14. So we have a request for some employees to use their earned time off next month. All 3 of these employees were unable to take these due to the demands of your office and under your direction. So it's not like they had a choice and they did do it. So I would be in support of granting the 3 employees the time that you allotted, them leaving up to 14 hours next month. So we can get them this year.
I'll second the motion.
If a first and a second, any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 The motion carries.
That's all I have for today, unless you have anything for me.
Anything for Mr. Warner or Ms. Brown?
I I will just pass along that I was on the Zoom call last week with some commissioners in the Southwest District. And the discussion went to whether or not there could be any coordination of message surrounding COVID, either in prevention or in vaccination. So I don't know if that's going to go anywhere. Two people that were leading that discussion were Commissioner Gathorst in Davies County and Commissioner Streeter in Knox County. Commissioner Streeter is also, I think, the preparedness coordinator in Davies County Health Department. I don't know if you know her, Sean. She seemed to know you and had some good things to say. So I would assume you know her as well.
Yes.
So I don't know if anything will come out of that, but I just thought I would throw it out there. If it does, you know where to reach me.
Thank you.
All right.
Merry Christmas, Sean.
Same to you. Thanks, Sean.
That fulfills everything that is on our listed agenda. We will now open it up if anybody has a public comment that they would like to make or. So then we have miscellaneous items. We'll start with the auditor's office.
Agreement. Property Owners Association for data share.
So there's no fee associated with it or any additional charge from WTH to set it up. Council is a copy of the agreement by the Lake Harbor Property Association. For us to consider and approve, after to sign, the commissioners, WTH, will email over a copy of the executed agreement. I guess this is, in short, us agreeing, allowing them to share. And Mr. Schneider, did you look at this? Or any?
I just got it.
Okay. I don't know if there's any contractual issues with the document. I think sometimes when we share data, we require or get a payment. This isn't the case here. Hopefully, this will get no cost to us and they will get some data. I always err on the side of providing as much data as we can, if it doesn't cost us anything because it's the public's information. So I would probably, we please.
I think you'll do that.
Don't think there's any issue with it. Commissioner Hostetter?
I don't have any issue with it.
Commissioner Brown?
Yeah, I have a couple of parts. I'm sorry. Is your question about
this WTH agreement?
what are the things that I have to share or? I don't know.
Okay. So I will move that we approve signing the agreement with the Lake Howard WTH pending review of local council. All in favor, say aye.
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 That motion carries. So, Mr. Sheriff, if you see any issues, we'll work on that. Otherwise, we'll sign it and when you're done. Anything else in the auditor's office? No? No? I'll give you both an update on the grant that I've been working on with SERS. Once again, it's called the Community Connection for People with Disabilities Grant. The feedback, I contacted 5 different areas of the county that I thought would be possible places that a hotspot would serve that community well. And 4 of them I've talked with, and they're all extremely positive about the project of putting a hotspot in their area for to support inclusivity and the ability for people to use that connection, internet connection. And those locations I will share in general. There's one in Holland, one in Hayesville, one in Birdseye, and one at the Du Bois County Park. So those are the 4 locations where I've reached out, had a conversation with leadership at each of those, and it sounds very positive. I've connected our friends at SERS with some people at Matrix, and we have some preliminary numbers, and we are working up, continuing on with our grant. So it's going well, and I'm excited about that, possibly hoping that we can be awarded that grant. I have no other miscellaneous items for myself. I'll pass it on to Commissioner Hostetter. If you have anything? Nothing additional there?
Satisfying. My only comment is, it says it's good till the end of the calendar year. Which would be like. It's something to renew.
Well, if we get it to them today, maybe they'll get them the stuff this week. Right?
Yeah, so.
They just sent it, so.
So we will go ahead and send this. We had from our previous approval. And Commissioner Bramas, if you would like to proceed with your items, please.
Yeah, I have, just very quickly here, just to inform you that we have Silver Lake, local water and sewer district meeting last week, and at which they voted for my objection to go ahead and pay off their debt to the county. I think they still owe $400,000, and I justified over my objection, but they're paying 2% interest, and I said, I don't know where we can get anything like that anywhere else. So they will be paying off the debt. So Sandy, I don't know if Pat Saber has contacted you
Several times.
That last council meeting.
He has contacted me, actually this morning, I had another email from him wanting to confirm how much they owe, how much we've paid, how much interest, they will owe $8,000 of interest, and then they will be finished if they pay it off. But you're correct, they only had to pay the principal off and a balloon payment, and they made them all. They had a 30-year loan, and they're paying, I mean, they've paid off $600 already. Or so, 800, or 800,000 already.
Yes.
800,000, you know. They took out 1.2 million.
800. It was 1.2 originally, yes.
Correct.
Yes. Okay. So, and then the other thing that I will share with you, you've heard a lot of the news recently about the breach in our systems, especially in the federal government. Well, Thursday, let's see, about 10 days ago, I was on a conference call with the Secretary of State's office as a rule. The reason I was on was the board, the commissioner board members were invited to join. And one of the executive vice presidents was from FireEye was there, talking about the breach that they incurred through this. At that time, I didn't know anything about how extensive it was throughout other systems. But they assured us at that meeting that there was no danger to any of our data or any of our programs from what they experienced with their systems. I think they call them redline programs. Were the only thing that at this point that they recognized that they had been compromised. And as I understand it, these are assessment programs that FireEye uses to assess the security capabilities of various systems. So although they were embarrassed and concerned about their reputation, they assured us that there was no risk to us. They did talk at that meeting about setting up another conference call with technology, IT personnel, because the request was that they will understand this a whole lot better than we will. So I've had a conversation with Amy Kipwat about it, and to let her know that if she hears anything, to be sure and include Matrix in that discussion, because they're not part of the IT association, I assume they're not. And, they may not get the message. So she, was gonna follow up on that.
And she is here in person?
Where we,
She is here in person, and if, I don't know if she has a comment.
Amy's there.
Yes, sir. You have a comment? you
Yeah.
want to make?
I did get the email last week. They had an IT conference call, virtual call. I talked to Matrix about jumping on that call, and they didn't feel like they needed to join. They were fully aware of the situation. And I joined the meeting, got a very detailed level of their IT conversations. It lasted for about an hour. There was a lot of question and answer, and I felt even more reassured that we had nothing to worry about at our level.
Thank you. Commissioner Ramos, what else do you have?
Well, just a couple of things. Let you know that I have been appointed to the Radius, board. I think it was a close election, but, approved my nomination, so I'll be serving on that at least for the next 2 years. We also had an election in the Southwest District, of the Indiana Association of County Commissioners. So Kelly Freeman, Commissioner in Mount Pleasant, will be the president of the Southwest District, and Nathan Gapler will be vice president, and Rodney Fish will be secretary treasurer. So, looking forward to that. I think that's all I have.
And can you repeat that again? What was the position that I know the radius, and what was the title of the second position?
Well, this is the Southwest District of the Indiana Association of County Commissioners, which I have served as president for the last 2 years. We had an election, and for the coming year, Commissioner Kelly Streeter from Knox County will serve as president. And Nathan Gabler, Commissioner in Davis County, will be vice president, and Rodney Fish, Commissioner in Lawrence County, will be secretary treasurer. I actually will be serving on the board as in the officer's position. I think secretary of treasurer and secretary treasurer will overall. And so I will still be on the board, but will not be an officer in the Southwest District.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone else have any business today? So Commissioner Ramos, looks like there's going to be a bunch of things here for you to sign. Sandy said she worked with you on those. There's also some miscellaneous mail here on the last year to put with your file. And we'll go from there. Anything else? Okay, we will adjourn. Merry Christmas, Elmer. Merry Christmas, Elmer.
No, I don't think so.
I just saw the thing on Facebook.
Oh,
Yesterday
yeah.
or whatever.
He is not, no.